With a number of people checking out Linux for the very first time, I realize it's been a while since we've done a video just going over the basics when you first log in. I mean, sometimes all of us in the Linux world, we just get used to going in and just jumping in and doing something, and you say, oh, how'd you do that? Where'd you get? So I just wanted to do another little quick guide on just getting started with Linux Mint, which if you're considering a switch to Linux, I'd recommend you start on Linux Mint. It doesn't mean you have to stay on it for all eternity. It's just one of the easiest ones that you barely have to touch the terminal. It works out of the box with the most amount of hardware available. It's very stable, and there's a lot of people that would recommend it, at least for getting started. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this, and our setup here is the brand new, yet to be released Linux Mint 22.1. I'm running this one on the beta, and this is going to be the prevailing thing that you're going to see when you install the default Linux Mint Cinnamon. And so let's go ahead and walk through the first steps that I did here. Is I think the wallpaper was changed at one point in time. I put it back to this one, which is closer to the one you'll have on install. I'll go ahead and show you how to make those adjustments. But the other thing is I did connect to Wi-Fi. So there is in your taskbar down here on the bottom right of the screen, you can click down here. If I had my cable plugged in, I do have Ethernet directly into this laptop and an Ethernet port available. But I wanted to just go ahead and do this wirelessly, minimize those cables on the desk right now. So just find your wireless connection and log in any other way. They'll all appear right here. You can see other network connection settings inside of here. You can make adjustments. So this is your, you can edit it and things like that. So you can come down here. You can see what your SSID is. Of course, mine is the FBI surveillance van. You can connect it with priority, and you can set priorities. You can also disconnect the automatic connection. I do that on one of my computers. This laptop here always auto connects. My other laptop does not automatically connect to this, to the network here. And there's reasons I have for doing that, but just be aware that you can do that. You can also set it to automatically connect to a VPN, and you can set up VPNs if you want inside of here under your network connections. You can click add, and then you can choose a variety, and by default it'll have a couple of different VPN settings available, and if you have a saved configuration file you can just import it there. So you can see that there is a lot of robustness in that. I did also install the screen recorder that we are using on this. That is Simple Screen Recorder right here. And so that's what this icon is doing. Now, when you first land on Linux Mint, they're going to present you with a welcome screen, and this is most of what you want to see. By default, it will have this checked down here, so every time you start the system up, it will show you this. You can turn that off just by de-checking that box. You can also turn this off by disabling this in the automatic load applications. So there is actually a startup applications that will start up. So if on my computers that I don't generally use Bluetooth, I might come in and just toggle this off. If I'm never printing, I'll toggle this one off. So there's a number of different things. So I don't have any NVIDIA drivers. I can easily toggle that one off. System reports, this comes down here. This will bring up your system reports. The good thing about Linux Mint is this system reports button here. If you have a problem on your system and you're looking for help with it, people always ask about your system information. So I don't know what that is. Just pull up that system reports, the second tab here. This is everything about the system. Copy this guy in, paste it into your board where they're asking you about the system information, and this may look like a bunch of gibberish to you, but the people who do all the hardware stuff and can help you out will know exactly what everything is, and they're going to want to see things like that. If there's any crash reports in here, they will appear over here, and you can see the only thing that we have in the system reports is I never set up the time shift utility. I think this disk I have in here is too small. This is on real hardware, but I think I have it on a really small hard disk. So we'll talk a little bit about the time shift as well. But you can turn that off. The update manager. It looks like the welcome screen used to be in here. It looks like it's no longer in here, unless it's attached to one of these other ones. It used to be in here. It's not anymore. But the update manager, that is your updates down here. This little shield with the dot tells you there's an update. We'll get into the updates in just a moment. If for some reason you don't want your system automatically checking for updates, you want to do that manually, you can just toggle this button off and that will never boot up. Those are little simple things. So the first steps that you might want to do is if you want to change your accent colors. I think this is still the default, as Linux Mint has changed their defaults into blue. And we have a very simple style here. We have 3 different styles. We have a Mint X, a Mint Y, and a Mint L. So you have a variety of different options to go with there. And then you can do a mixed appearance, which has some light and some dark elements to it. You can go with everything straight dark, or you can go with everything straight light. I prefer the mix personally. And then you can choose your accent colors. So this will just kind of highlight what your accent colors are. This is kind of a split between blues and oranges. This one's just a straight blue everywhere. And then you can do like the orange and black, kind of like the Ubuntu look. So you can do those. And then if you do want to use advanced settings, this is the old style of managing the themes, but you can come in here and there's just a pile of different options that you have from colors to styles, just everything that you're looking at there. So these are all options that you have. You can also download more themes from online. So just click on this add remove. You can see it's downloading 97 different potential desktop themes. So you can find anything in here that you want. You can download these, install these themes, and then you can control and customize your settings. So these are ways that you can control how the appearance of the system is. While we're talking about appearance, before we get into the next thing, which is the system snapshots, let's go ahead and just talk about your desktop wallpapers. You can just right click. You can see we have a very robust context menu here on the desktop. And if you come down here to change desktop background, you have these are your basic Linux Mint wallpapers. These are some wallpapers that we have. And then the Wilma here is the wallpapers, I think this is the 22.0 released wallpapers. But you can see some of these are more nature-esque type scenes in this one. Although the wallpapers in the current 22.1 release, they're just more abstract wallpapers. So you have a variety of different options that you might want to go with here. So go ahead and walk through those and just decide what you would like to use. I personally like more of the nature themes. Ooh, that's a pretty beautiful mountain. Let's go with that. So you can also find your desktop backgrounds inside of your system settings over here. And if you can't find it right away, it's up here under appearance. You can just type in backgrounds up here in the search, and that's going to show you everything related to that background. All right, let's get back to our welcome screen, though. The next is the system snapshots. You are going to have to enter your password to get into here. The system snapshots is like the Windows restore points. So before you do any major changes or updates, the system would like you to set this up. It is optional at this point in time. I probably don't have enough disk space on this particular SSD to use this. I'm just running this on a test SSD I have. It's only 32 gig, but we'll see what it actually says here. You come in here, you select the option. You saw that the rsync was the only option we had. The other option will be available if you have a different file system. So it depends on what your default file system is. And then here you can choose what you are changing. This is the snapshot location. You do have to be very careful if you have multiple different multiple different hard drives. You'll see this particular device here, I have several hard drives, and I do not want to save to anything that I'm not expecting. So this one here, this 120 gigabyte one, this is actually a Cubes install. This 1 terabyte drive, this is my basic default install. You can see that that Lux there means that these are encrypted drives. ext4 is not encrypted. This one down here, which is the M2 2242 32 gigabyte, this is actually the drive that we are using right now. So I would want to choose this as the drive location, and then you choose next, and then you choose, do you want to keep a monthly, a weekly, a daily, an hourly, and then there's every time you boot the system. And then you can go ahead and set this up however you want. So this says 5 daily ones. I think that might be a little too much for most people, depending on what you're doing. If I were actually setting this up, I might do something like maybe a weekly, and maybe let's keep 1 monthly and maybe 2 weeklies. That's what I might do. That way it saves 1 a month, and then you can go back a month's time, and then you can do 2 separate ones every single week. So you can do that. And that is actually how it's going to work. Your next, this is going to choose what you're going to include or exclude. So you can include all files, include only hidden files, exclude all files. So this is, you'll see from your home directory. And the reason there's excluded files here is because this setup system is not designed to make a backup of your files. It is only designed to make a backup of your system. Like I said, Windows Restore Point. If something goes wrong on Windows and you roll it back using Windows Restore Point, it rolls back the Windows configuration to the last known good configuration without changing any files in between. So if you start including all files and you have to roll back, you're going to roll back, possibly deleting files that have been added to your system since the last restore point. So that is the logic behind there. I'm not going to click finish on this because I don't actually want to set those up. You can hit create if you want to do it automatically, or you can let the cron do its thing. So that's your system snapshot. Your drivers, most of you will probably not have to mess with this one. The driver manager is going to look for any proprietary hardware on your device and see if there's any drivers that can be installed from external sources. These are going to be safe external sources. It's going to be like, the manufacturer releases a Linux driver for something, but it's not in the kernel. The reason most people don't have to mess with this is Linux manages the drivers at the kernel level. The kernel contains all the drivers for all the hardware, so generally, by and large, you don't need to mess with drivers on Linux, which is a lot different from how you have to do it on Windows, albeit the modern versions of Windows do make it a lot easier to automatically find and download the driver devices, kind of borrowing from the Linux model. Now, the Update Manager, again, you can access this clicking this button down here. It's the same button as inside of here. And when you click this here, it's going to be searching for your updates. Now, you might see this button up here. Do you want to switch to a local mirror? This means that this is where you get your software from. So I generally keep this at packages.linuxmint.com. Generally works better in many instances. There's coming up, they're still experimenting with it, what's called the Fastly system, which is going to be a CDN distributed, which means you would never have to change it at that point in time. It always picks the fastest location based on your region. But if you do want to change that, once again, you will have to enter your password. And this is going to boot up a software sources, which you can also find from the menu. You can see software sources in the menu. Now, Linux Mint carries with it 2 different basic sources. One of these is the Linux Mint packages, which in this case is the main. And the second one is the Ubuntu packages, which in this case is the base. So you'd want to click on these, and when you click on this, it's going to open up a box, and it's going to start probing all of these different servers to see which one is faster. Generally, you want to choose whichever one is faster. There might be some instances if you want to use a university instead of a business. Some people might do that. You can see in this case, I would definitely not use that layer online, which seems to be offline right now. Linux Mint is the fastest one. That generally is why I typically just pick Linux Mint. You'll see that nothing changed there. The Ubuntu one, the last time I did this probing, it worked fastest from that location. However, I changed locations since then, so let's see what's going on. So it looks like the fastest is USF, which makes sense because I'm recording this video from Florida. So it makes sense that it would have a faster route to that. So we'll go ahead and choose that for our base. And then up here it says, click here to update apt cache. What the apt cache means is this is a listing of all of the available software on the system. Anytime you make changes to your sources, you want to update that apt cache, and then that's going to inform the computer of how many more updates there are to actually get. Now, once it is done updating that cache, then we can then close the window, and then we'll see what software is available. Now, the modern version of these software managers, we'll just go ahead and have a look at it now. They will have icons over here to tell you what type of update it actually is. So the shields here are a security update. So you can see that there's a security update for Firefox. The lightning bolts are kernel updates. So these are updating firmware and the kernel. And then just the circles with the up arrow, this is just a basic software update. And there will be another one in there, which I don't have any installed here, but Flatpaks. Okay, that's done. I'll close that up. Flatpaks will appear and they will look like a cube. In the past, you had to update Flatpaks independently, but in modern versions of Linux Mint, any Flatpaks you have in the system, you can also install. Now, if there happens to be a package that is causing problems, you can actually just decheck it and then it will not update. But you can also right-click it and you can ignore the current update, or you can ignore all future updates to the package. Now, if you're blocking a dependency from updating, that could possibly break software, but you might sometimes say, oh, I know that this package is messed up, and you might want to ignore the current update and wait for a different one. By and large, that's not a situation most people will run into, particularly here on Linux Mint. There have been times I've done it in the past, but for the most part, you generally do not need to do that. So the next one is the system settings. We've already introduced this briefly. It's also up here on your menu, and you can also find your system settings just by searching and finding system settings in the menu there. This, of course, just like the old control panel in Windows, covers everything you might need. We have our backgrounds, effects, the fonts. You can control all the fonts in all the menus, and the themes we've already looked at. And then there's a variety of preferences and things like this. So there are a lot of extra things like desklets, for example, are widgets you can add to your desktop. And there's also applets, which are widgets you can add to your panel. We also have actions. This is fairly new, and action is something you can add to your context menu over here. So if you want to go in and look at actions, you can choose to do things like mounting. You can choose to make a bootable USB stick. Warpinator sends to Warpinator. So if you are using the Warpinator system, allowing you to easily send files to other systems on the same local network, you can have a file to right click on that. There's a number of different actions, and you can download additional ones. We have a variety of different things. We could do a whole video on just what's in here, but so we're not going to do that. This one here, the privacy. Do you want to remember any recently accessed files? Do you want to ignore old files after how many days? And then there's also the internet connectivity. This is going to ping itself off of a server just to detect if there's internet connections. So you can turn that on or turn that off. And then down here under the hardware system, this is where you have an adjustment. So if you need to make an adjustment to your screen display, you can make those over here. If you want, you can turn on or turn off things. This is a laptop, but I'm docked on an external screen. So right now I have the built-in screen turned off. I can turn those back on. I can change my refresh rates and all that kind of stuff. Change your color, your networking, Bluetooth, all that kind of stuff is over here. Speaking of Bluetooth, it's something that's fairly underappreciated. We can come over here and we can add various Bluetooth Bluetooth devices. Do I have a Bluetooth device handy? Not really. But you go ahead and hit the search button, and it's going to search for any available Bluetooth devices. Hey, I'm in a shopping plaza. Undoubtedly, somebody's going to have Bluetooth turned on somewhere, right? Who knows? I'll get into somebody's stuff, show you why you shouldn't do that. But you can get in here, and if there is some Bluetooth item, then it'll appear on the list, and you can sync things up. You can disable Bluetooth entirely up there as well. We'll go ahead and cancel that. And then there you can see there's your sound settings, fairly similar as well. You can see I have a variety of different sound controls, inputs, outputs, various sounds, so I can turn on or turn off various sounds inside of there. Last panel, of course, is administration. Our driver manager is down here, our software sources, groups and users. These are the individual users on the system. You are going to need to authenticate your system to get into there. So you can see here is our Mint user. He's an administrator, and he's part of these particular groups. So you can add different groups and things from inside of there. The login window, you can also make some adjustments in here. I think this is where if you want to auto log in, you can set that up over here. Let's double check. So here is what background do you want to see when you first log in. So you can choose a different background for your login screen if you want to do that. Go ahead and pick that one there. Let's see. Linux Mint. There's Wilma. Let's see if I can find a cool background. That's the same one I'm using. We'll just do that one there. And then you can choose your color background. You can draw the user backgrounds, draw the grids, and then you can talk about where the alignment is at. You can over here, you can do your users. You can allow a manual login. You can allow a guest session, and then if you want, you can automatically log in. So you can make the connection and log in automatically. Then here's a variety of different options, your clock format for your login screen and things like that. So there is the system configurations inside of there. Let's do the firewall next, and then we'll get into our software last. Depending on what type of system you're doing, if this is a laptop that's roaming around in the world with you, you probably are going to want to turn your firewall on. Most cases, it's generally turned off because it could cause problems with network connectivity, and it could have other unintended consequences. But most people, if they're sitting at home or at work, they just have their system connected automatically to a router, which is handling all of your firewall. But if your laptop is running around with you into coffee shops, it is definitely worth turning this on. And you can set different profiles like your home and your you can do your home, you can do your public. So, home is, I think home is turned off by default, and public is turned on by default, I think. But you can set different settings in there for your firewall. The last thing we want to highlight is the software manager. Once again, it is hot linked over to your menu, and you can just type in software and find your software manager. The first time you load it, it will take a little bit of time to generate the cache, but this is where you have a variety of different software to install. So unlike Windows, in the old let's go ahead and say the old school Windows, you'd have to generally go online or go to the store to buy a package. You put your disk in or download the package you found online, and then this is going to allow you to get in there and install the application. On Linux, you can still download software. It is not going to be the same Windows software. You need to look specifically for Linux versions. However, most software you will ever need is inside of your software manager. Anything in here is generally considered safe. The developers of the distribution have audited the software, and they have made sure that everything is good, and everything in here is generally going to be safe. Now, what Linux Mint does is it uses the Flatpak system in order to extend the software beyond what is in the repository. You can look specifically for Flatpak over here, and that little cube square there is the icon you're going to see in your update manager if there is a Flatpak to update. Now, Flatpak does have its own verification system, and because of this, Linux Mint has chosen not to show unverified Flatpaks by default. I have toggled this on. I've used this system for things in the past, so I've toggled it on. By default, it is turned off, and you will not be able to see any Flatpaks that are not verified by the developer of the software itself. Turn it on, and you will be able to see all of the Flatpaks. So generally, that's the case. Inside of here, we have a variety of different categories. So if you want to look at different fonts available, you can install fonts. And we have, here's Office Suites over here. We have Tech Studios for LaTeX. Here's Cherry Tree. We can see LibreOffice. This is installed by default, at least some of LibreOffice's. They don't have the math. And they don't generally have the LibreOffice base installed. I don't see that anywhere in here. It should be in here somewhere. Let me see. Base is the... maybe they do. Hold on. Let me double check. So they just have the core here. There is the LibreOffice base application, which is effectively your databases. I'm not seeing it in here. It should be in here somewhere. But that'll allow you to do databasing, in their system. But you can just choose by the variety of different options you have, or you can just browse what's here, or you can search what's up here. And you can get in here and install different software inside of this, and pretty much anything you install inside of here is going to be very safe. Let's see if I can show installed applications. These are the applications that I have installed since installing the system. We have our Linux headers. Those came in a package update. This is the simple screen recorder, which I am using to record this, and I installed Audacity. Everything else that's on the system was on here when I installed it. So there is a lot of software available to you. And let's have a brief look at the software. Linux Mint does feel like a very full and robust system. Looking at the accessories, we have a calculator, we have an archive manager, disk utilities, character maps, just a variety of different tools, image stick formatters, writers. There's that Warpinator application allowing you to send and receive files to different computers on the network. For graphics, we have a simple drawing tool, we have a picture organizer, a document scanner, which works with a lot of scanners out of the box. For internet, we have Thunderbird, Transmission, Firefox. Now, Matrix here is a web app. The web app allows you to build a application out of a simple website. So Matrix is one of those. Oop, that's not what I meant to start. I meant to start web apps. So you can see here that Matrix is a web app. All right, let's, sure, I agree to Transmission just to close it. There you go. All right, and under Office, we have our Office suite. We have our basic ones. We have Impress, which is your presentations like PowerPoint, Writer, obviously spreadsheets, and then we have Draw, which allows you to do a lot of things with PDF and things like that. We have a calendar application and a, what is the library tool? Recent and favorite documents. So enter your sound and your video. Audacity, I installed that one. Celluloid is your default default video player. Rhythmbox is your default music player. I installed Simple Screen Recorder, and Hypnotics allows you to play open source and public domain television feeds. Under our administration, we have everything from printers, time shift, login managers. A lot of these are all things that are also available inside of your control panel. Not all of them, like the terminal is down there. And then preferences, again, many of these are inside of your control panel. So that is our basic overview of Linux Mint. Out of the box, it's a very easy, very simple thing. Let's go ahead and talk about one more thing, because I'm looking at this realizing that I like desktop icons, and not everybody does. Let me go ahead and find our customize. That's the button I was looking for. So you can do desktop settings. This is where your desktop icons are. Now, desktop icons do work. They just don't have any installed here. I like to access network. I like my trash, and I like my home on my desktop. So you can go ahead and turn all of those on. Inside of here, you can choose how wide is the grid. If you want it to be, really wide or really small, you can do that. You can auto arrange them, or you can turn this off to do manual arrangements. You can do a variety of icon sizes depending on what you like there. So there's a variety of different settings that you have. Then you can go by vertical, by name, and then these ones down here again just will adjust the horizontal and the vertical spacing up there. You can always reset everything just by clicking that button there. So there's your desktop options as well. So there is our basic overview here of Linux Mint Cinnamon. If you are new to Linux, hopefully this helped you out. If there's any other questions, leave those in the comments down below.